The red sand stung Ryan Cole's face as he emerged from the airlock of his transport ship. The outpost before him was nothing more than a collection of prefabricated domes and abandoned hangar bays, half buried in the crimson dunes that define this desolate planet. At the outer rim of the solar system, these forgotten stations existed in the limbo between private corporate control and military jurisdiction, places where laws bent as easily as light around a black hole. Ryan adjusted his oxygen filter and squinted against the harsh sunlight. This was just another drop point, another nameless rock where he'd offload cargo, collect payment, and move on. His life had become a series of identical moments strung together without purpose, ever since the accident. 3 years ago, his wife and daughter had been on a civilian transport to the inner colonies. The official report claimed it was an engine malfunction, but rumors persisted about raiders and corporate espionage. All Ryan knew was that one day he had a family, and the next he didn't. Now he lived for nothing but the next flight, the next job, anything to keep his mind from circling back to that empty apartment with 2 beds that would never be slept in again. "Just drop the supplies and get the hell out," he muttered to himself, checking the manifest on his wrist display. 2 hours max. The trading post was deserted. Unusual, but not unprecedented. The outer rim planets cycled through periods of boom and abandonment as resources were discovered, stripped, and forgotten. This particular outpost had clearly seen better days. Wind-torn banners from the United Planetary Mining Corporation hung limply from rusty poles, and security doors creaked on failing hydraulics. Ryan was halfway through unloading the cargo when the transmission came through. A weak signal, barely breaking through the static, emanating from his ship's communication array. "Hello? Is anyone? Please help." The voice was small, childlike, interspersed with unfamiliar sounds that the translator struggled to process. "Please help. Marry my mom?" Ryan froze, crate in hand. The comm system shouldn't be picking up anything on this frequency, especially not a child's voice. After the wars for interstellar resources, most colonies maintained strict communication protocols. Open channel broadcasts were reserved for emergencies only. He should ignore it, load the supplies, collect payment from the drop box, and boost out of this dust bowl. That was the smart play. That was survival. But something in that tiny voice pulled at him, a thread of hope in a universe that had given him nothing but ashes for 3 years. "This is transport vessel NC-117, he responded, surprised by the gravel in his own voice. When was the last time he'd spoken to anyone who wasn't a port authority or payment handler? "Identify yourself and state your location." Static crackled for several long seconds. Then, "I'm Sia. We're underground. Mom is hurt. The bad people will come back. Please, help us." Ryan glanced at his ship. The cargo was half unloaded. If he abandoned the job now, his reputation would take a hit. No more contracts from UPMC. But if there was actually a child in danger? "Send coordinates," he said finally. Decision made. The navigation ping came through almost immediately, surprisingly precise for what sounded like a distress call from a child. The location was only a few kilometers away, nestled in what appeared to be an abandoned mining sector. Ryan sealed his environmental suit, grabbed his blaster, and set out across the rusty landscape. The twin suns beat down mercilessly, heating the interior of his suit despite the cooling systems working at maximum capacity. By the time he reached the coordinates, a nondescript patch of sand with what looked like a concealed hatch, sweat had soaked through his underclothes. "Hello," he called out, kneeling to examine what appeared to be a manual release mechanism. "Sia, I'm here to help." A tiny voice replied from a hidden speaker. "Are you the human from the ship?" "Yes," Ryan confirmed. "My name is Ryan Cole. I'm a transport pilot." There was a pause. Then a mechanical whirring as the sand-covered hatch began to open, revealing a dark passage below. Ryan hesitated only briefly, before lowering himself down the ladder. Blaster ready at his hip. The hatch sealed behind him with an ominous thud. The bunker was dimly lit by emergency strips that pulsed with a blue glow. The air was breathable but thin, with an unfamiliar sweetness that made Ryan's nose twitch. He moved cautiously through the corridor, senses alert for any sign of danger. "Sia," he called softly. "Where are you?" A small figure darted out from behind a storage container. Ryan nearly drew his weapon before registering what he was seeing. A child. No more than 7 or 8 by human standards, with delicate blue-green skin and large, luminescent eyes. Not human, but humanoid enough to trigger that instinctive protective response he'd thought long dead. "You came," the child said, voice filled with wonder. Her features were delicate, almost crystalline, with faint, bioluminescent patterns that pulsed beneath her skin. "Mom said no humans would help us." "Where is your mother?" Ryan asked, holstering his weapon to appear less threatening. "You said she was hurt?" Sia nodded solemnly and gestured for him to follow. She led him deeper into the bunker, past rooms filled with abandoned equipment and sealed containers marked with symbols he didn't recognize. Finally, they reached what appeared to be living quarters, a space converted from some kind of laboratory, with makeshift beds and cooking facilities. On one of the beds lay a woman, clearly Sia's mother, with the same blue-green skin, though hers was marred with scars and what appeared to be fresh wounds leaking purple fluid. Her breathing was labored, and her eyes, larger than human eyes and filmed with a second transparent lid, were closed in pain. "Mom," Sia whispered, approaching the bed. "I found help. A human." The woman's eyes snapped open, revealing irises that shifted color like oil on water. When she saw Ryan, she attempted to sit up, reaching for what looked like a weapon beside her bed. "No," she hissed, voice melodic despite the obvious pain. "Sia, what have you done? He'll bring them here." "He came to help," Sia insisted, placing herself between Ryan and her mother. "His name is Ryan Cole. He's not with the bad people." Ryan raised his hand slowly. "I'm just a transport pilot. I heard your daughter's distress call and came to help. That's all." The woman's gaze was penetrating, assessing. Finally, she relaxed marginally, though her hand remained near the weapon. "I am Rilke. You should not have come here, human. This planet is not safe for any of us." Her voice carried an accent the translator couldn't quite smooth out, giving her words a musical quality. "What happened to you?" Ryan asked, gesturing to her wounds. "Those need medical attention." Rilke's expression hardened. "The alliance happened. Your people. They want Sia, and they will kill me to get her." Ryan frowned. "The alliance? You mean the United Planetary Coalition?" The loose federation of human colonies wasn't known for hunting alien species. At least, not officially. "The Genetic Council," Rilke clarified, voice dropping to a near whisper. "They hunt us for what we carry." Before Ryan could ask for clarification, Sia tugged at his sleeve. "Can you help Mom? She's been hurt for 3 days. Our medicine is gone." Ryan hesitated. He had basic medical supplies in his ship, but nothing specialized for non-human physiology. Still, infection and blood loss were universal concerns. "I need to get my medkit from my ship. Will you be okay if I leave and come back?" Rilke's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You would return? Why?" The question caught Ryan off guard. Why indeed? He had no obligation to these strangers, no reason to risk his neck or his livelihood. Yet something about Sia's desperate plea and the fierce protective instinct in Rilke's eyes resonated with parts of himself he thought had died with his family. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "And because I made a promise to your daughter." Something shifted in Rilke's expression. Not trust, but perhaps a willingness to hope. She nodded once. "If you betray us, human, I will find you across the stars." Ryan believed her. The journey back to his ship was quicker, now that he knew the route. He collected his medical supplies, some rations, and, after a moment's consideration, sealed the cargo bay. The client would have to wait. Some things were more important than credits. When he returned to the bunker, Sia was waiting anxiously by the hatch. "You came back!" she exclaimed, as if genuinely surprised. The simple wonder in her voice made something twist in Ryan's chest. "I said I would," he replied, following her back to Rilke's side. Treating Rilke's wounds proved challenging. Her physiology was similar enough to human that the antiseptics and sealants worked, but different enough that Ryan had to proceed with extreme caution. Her blood was thicker than human blood, with a purplish hue that oxidized to deep indigo when exposed to air. The wounds themselves appeared to be from energy weapons, precision burns that had damaged tissue, but thankfully missed vital organs. "The drones found us 3 cycles ago," Rilke explained, as Ryan worked, her voice tight with pain. "We destroyed 2, but the 3rd marked our location before I could bring it down." "Drones?" Ryan asked, applying a pressure bandage to her largest wound. "Military grade?" "Genetic Council," Sia piped up from where she sat, watching the procedure with solemn eyes. "They want to take me away because I'm special." Ryan glanced at the child, then back to Rilke, who had closed her eyes again. "Special how?" he asked quietly. "My people are nearly extinct," Rilke whispered. "We carry genetic memories, knowledge passed through generations without being taught. Sia is the last child born to our colony before the harvesting began." The term sent a chill down Ryan's spine. He'd heard rumors of black market genetic operations, corporations seeking alien DNA to enhance human capabilities or create biological weapons. But the Genetic Council was supposedly a regulatory body, not the perpetrators. "You need rest," Ryan said, finishing with the bandages. "And proper nutrition. These field rations aren't ideal, but they should be compatible with your system." Rilke accepted the food packets with a nod of thanks. As she ate, Ryan turned his attention to Sia, who was examining his medical equipment with curious fingers. "Have you been hiding here long?" he asked her. Sia nodded. "Since the Red Moon. Mom says it's been 2 cycles. She looked up at him with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. "Are you going to marry my mom now?" Ryan nearly choked. "What? No, that's not why I'm here." "But you have to," Sia insisted. "Mom needs a partner, and I need a father. Our people mate for life. But Mom's mate died when the bad people came. She's been sad ever since." "Sia." Rilke's voice carried a warning note. "Do not bother the human with our customs." Ryan cleared his throat awkwardly. "I'm just here to help you both get somewhere safe. That's all." But as the hours stretched into days, Ryan found himself unable to leave. The drones Rilke had mentioned were a real threat. He spotted one hovering at the perimeter of the abandoned outpost, on his 3rd trip back to his ship. Its single red sensor eye scanned the landscape methodically, like a predator seeking prey. He managed to avoid detection, but the close call confirmed Rilke's fears. Someone was hunting them, and with persistence that suggested this was more than a random patrol. Back in the bunker, Ryan helped Rilke move around as her strength returned. Her wounds were healing remarkably fast, another physiological difference, but she remained wary of him, answering his questions with clipped responses and watching his every move. Sia, however, had no such reservations. She attached herself to Ryan with the uncomplicated trust of a child, showing him her makeshift toys and teaching him words in her native language, melodic sounds his translator couldn't quite capture. "What does that mean?" Ryan asked one evening, as Sia pointed to the stars, visible through a small observation port, and uttered a phrase that sounded like singing. "It means the dance of light through darkness," Rilke translated from where she sat, repairing what appeared to be some kind of communication device. Our people believe the stars are ancestors guiding us home. That's beautiful, Ryan said genuinely. My daughter used to say the stars were diamonds that God dropped when making the universe. The words slipped out before he could stop them. He never spoke of Elena to anyone. Rilke's hands stilled. You have a child? Had, Ryan corrected, the familiar pain lancing through him. She and my wife died in a transport accident 3 years ago. The silence that followed was heavy, with shared understanding. Finally, Rilke spoke, her voice softer than he'd heard before. I am sorry for your loss, Ryan Cole. To lose one's family is to lose one's heart. Is that why you asked me to marry Mom? Sia asked suddenly, climbing into Ryan's lap as if she belonged there. Because you lost your heart too? Before Ryan could formulate a response, the bunker's alarm system blared to life. Rilke was on her feet instantly, all vulnerability vanishing as she snatched up her weapon. They've found us, she hissed. Ryan, get Sia to the emergency exit. I'm not leaving you, Ryan protested, but Rilke's expression brooked no argument. Protect my daughter, she commanded. That is all I ask of you, human. Ryan nodded grimly, gathering Sia into his arms despite her protests. He followed Rilke's directions to a secondary exit, a narrow tunnel that appeared to lead toward the abandoned mining facility. Mom! Sia cried, reaching back toward her mother as Ryan carried her away. I will find you, little star, Rilke promised, her voice steady, even as the alarm grew more insistent. Remember what I taught you. The tunnel was claustrophobically narrow, forcing Ryan to crawl at points with Sia clinging to his back. They emerged in what had once been a processing facility, now half buried in red sand. Through the broken windows, Ryan could see a sleek black ship descending toward the outpost. Nothing like the bulky transport vessels he was familiar with. This was a hunter, built for speed and stealth. We need to get to my ship, Ryan muttered, scanning for the safest route. Can you run, Sia? The little girl nodded bravely, though her luminescent patterns had dimmed with fear. They made it halfway across the facility floor when the drone appeared, hovering silently through a shattered skylight. Its red eye locked onto them immediately, a targeting laser painting a crimson dot on Sia's forehead. Ryan reacted instinctively, shoving Sia behind a fallen beam and drawing his blaster in one fluid motion. The first shot went wide, but the second connected, sending the drone spiraling into a wall with a satisfying crash of metal and circuits. Come on, he urged, reaching for Sia, but the girl was frozen, staring past him with wide, terrified eyes. Ryan turned to find himself facing a tall figure in a sealed environmental suit, the helmet obscuring any features. In the figure's hands was a weapon Ryan had never seen before, something that looked more like a medical instrument than a gun, with vials of fluid visible along its barrel. Step away from the specimen, a mechanically filtered voice commanded. This retrieval is sanctioned by the Genetic Council under Protocol 7B. Ryan kept his blaster raised. She's a child, not a specimen. The Sarathi genetic line contains proprietary sequences patented by the Council. The figure responded, as if reciting a legal document. The female juvenile is especially valuable for study. Surrender her, and you may leave unharmed. Sia pressed against Ryan's leg, trembling. He wants to take me to the cold place, she whispered. Where they hurt the others. Something dark and protective unfurled in Ryan's chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced since losing his family. Not happening, he growled. Back off, or I'll put a hole through whatever's under that suit. The standoff might have ended badly, if not for the energy blade that suddenly protruded from the figure's chest. The harvester, for that was surely what he was, looked down in apparent surprise before collapsing forward, revealing Rilke standing behind him, her weapon still glowing with residual energy. "Mom!" Sia cried, running to embrace her mother. Rilke hugged her daughter fiercely with one arm, the other still gripping her blade. "We must leave this place," she said urgently. "There will be others." Ryan nodded toward the fallen harvester. What did he mean about patented sequences? Who are these people? Later, Rilke said, already moving toward the exit with Sia in tow. Your ship, is it far? Just beyond the ridge, Ryan confirmed. But we need to hurry. That black ship I saw belongs to Mercer, Rilke finished grimly. The Council's chief harvester, if he is here personally. They are desperate indeed. They made it to Ryan's transport ship without further incident, though the black vessel was now visible on the horizon, approaching fast. Ryan rushed through the pre-flight checks, bypassing safety protocols in his haste to get airborne. "Strap in!" he called to Rilke and Sia as the engines roared to life. "This might get rough." The takeoff was shakier than Ryan would have liked, the ship protesting the sudden demands placed on its systems. They had barely cleared the atmosphere when the proximity alarm blared. Mercer's ship was in pursuit, and it was significantly faster than Ryan's cargo hauler. "Can you outrun them?" Rilke asked, her voice tense as she held Sia close. Ryan shook his head. "Not in this bucket, but I might be able to lose them in the asteroid field near Alara." It was a desperate gambit. The Alaran asteroid belt was notoriously treacherous, with unpredictable gravitational eddies and chunks of rock that could reduce a ship to scrap in seconds. But Ryan had navigated it before, delivering mining equipment to the settlements on Alara's moons. If anyone could thread that needle, it was him. The journey to the asteroid belt was a tense one, with Mercer's ship maintaining a steady pursuit at the edge of weapons range. Ryan pushed his vessel to its limits, coaxing every bit of speed from the straining engines. "Mom, I'm scared," Sia whispered, as the first asteroids became visible through the viewport, massive chunks of rock and ice tumbling through the void. "I know, little star," Rilke soothed, "but Ryan will protect us. He is a good human." Ryan glanced back briefly, catching Rilke's eye. There was something in her gaze now, a trust that hadn't been there before. He nodded once in acknowledgement, before turning back to the controls. "Hold on tight," he warned as they plunged into the asteroid field. What followed was a harrowing dance of death. Ryan wove between spinning rocks, some as small as his fist, others larger than entire space stations. The ship groaned in protest as he executed maneuvers it was never designed for, the structural integrity alarms blaring constantly. Behind them, Mercer's vessel followed with uncanny precision. Whoever was piloting that ship was good, too good. A glancing blow from a medium-sized asteroid sent Ryan's ship spinning, alarms screaming as one of the stabilizers failed. "We can't keep this up," Ryan muttered, fighting to regain control. "We need to find somewhere to set down." "There." Rilke pointed to a gap in the asteroid field, beyond which a green-blue planet was visible. "Alara itself. The forests will hide us." Ryan adjusted course, aiming for the planet's atmosphere. Alara was technically within Coalition space, but its dense jungles and hostile native fauna had prevented extensive colonization. A perfect hiding place, if they could reach it. The ship broke through the atmosphere in a ball of fire, systems failing as the heat shields struggled to compensate. Ryan fought the controls, trying to guide their descent toward a clearing he spotted in the endless canopy below. "Brace for impact," he shouted, as the ground rushed up to meet them. The crash was violent, but survivable, the ship plowing through a swath of alien vegetation before coming to rest against a massive tree trunk. Emergency systems deployed automatically, filling the cabin with fire suppression foam and bathing everything in the red glow of backup lighting. Ryan's head throbbed where it had struck the console, but a quick self-assessment confirmed no serious injuries. "Rilke, Sia, are you all right?" "We are unharmed," Rilke's voice came from the passenger compartment. "Though your vessel appears to be..." Significantly damaged. That was an understatement. A quick diagnostic showed multiple system failures, from propulsion to life support. They weren't going anywhere in this ship again. Ryan unbuckled himself and moved to the cargo hold, where Rilke was already gathering what supplies had survived the crash. Sia stood in the center of the hold, her large eyes taking in the destruction with solemn understanding beyond her years. "Will the bad people find us here?" she asked Ryan directly. Ryan wanted to lie, to offer comforting platitudes, but something told him this child would see through such deceptions. "Probably," he admitted, "but we'll be ready for them." They salvaged what they could from the wreckage: food, water purifiers, medical supplies, and weapons. Rilke surprised Ryan with her knowledge of human technology, efficiently sorting through the debris and identifying what would be useful. "My people were traitors before the wars," she explained when she caught his questioning look. "We visited many human colonies. I served as a cultural liaison. Until the council decided your genetics were more valuable than your diplomacy," Ryan guessed. Rilke's expression darkened. "They began with willing participants, Sarathi, who offered DNA samples in exchange for protection during the resource conflicts. But when they discovered what our genetic memory truly contained—" "What does it contain?" Ryan asked, pausing in his work. Rilke glanced at Sia, who was examining a flowering plant at the edge of the clearing with childlike fascination. "Knowledge of the precursors, the ones who seeded both our races throughout the galaxy. Their technology, their power sources, their methods of manipulating space-time itself." She met Ryan's gaze steadily. "Sia carries more of this memory than any Sarathi in generations. That is why Mercer hunts her so relentlessly." The implications were staggering. Ryan had heard theories about common alien ancestors, the so-called precursor hypothesis, but most dismissed it as pseudoscience. If it were true, and if that knowledge could be extracted from Sarathi DNA, "They're not just studying her," he realized aloud. "They're mining her, harvesting information that could change the balance of power in the galaxy." Rilke nodded grimly. "And they will not stop until they have her." By nightfall, they had established a rudimentary camp a safe distance from the crash site. Alara's twin moons cast an eerie blue-green light through the canopy, illuminating the strange flora that surrounded them. Plants that resembled earth ferns unfurled massive fronds that glowed with bioluminescence, while tree trunks spiraled upward in impossible geometric patterns. Ryan built a small fire, more for comfort than necessity in the warm jungle air. As he worked, he became aware of Sia watching him intently. "What is it?" he asked, offering her a smile. "On my world, building fire is how males show they can care for a family," she said, matter-of-factly. "Are you showing Mom you would be a good mate?" Ryan nearly dropped the kindling he was holding. That's not," he stammered, glancing awkwardly at Rilke, who was organizing their supplies nearby. To his surprise, Rilke laughed, a melodic sound he hadn't heard from her before. "Sia has been without a father for too long," she said, approaching the fire. "She does not understand human customs." "Mom says I'm being rude," Sia informed Ryan solemnly. "But I'm not. I just want you to be my father. You're nice, and you fight well, and you make Mom smile when she thinks no one is looking." Ryan felt heat rising to his face that had nothing to do with the fire. "It's more complicated than that, Sia," he said gently. "Why?" the child demanded with impeccable logic. "You're alone. We're alone. We could be not alone together." Before Ryan could formulate a response, a distant sound caught his attention, the unmistakable whine of descent thrusters. He was on his feet instantly, extinguishing the fire with a handful of soil. "They've found us," he said quietly to Rilke. "Probably tracked the crash trajectory." Rilke nodded, her earlier levity vanishing. "There is a cave system nearby. I sensed it when we landed, an echo in the ground beneath us. We can hide there until they pass. Ryan gathered their essential supplies while Rilke took Sia's hand. Together, they melted into the jungle's shadows, guided by Rilke's uncanny ability to navigate in the dim moonlight. The cave entrance was nearly invisible, concealed behind a curtain of luminescent vines that parted at Rilke's touch. "Your people have been here before," Ryan realized as they entered the cave and found ancient markings etched into the stone walls, symbols similar to those he'd seen in the bunker. "The Sarathi traveled far in the early days," Rilke confirmed. "Before the humans came, before the wars. The cave system was extensive, tunnels branching in all directions like the roots of a massive tree. They made camp in a chamber deep within the network, where a pool of clear water provided both drinking supply and a natural mirror for the bioluminescent plants growing from the ceiling." As Sia slept, curled against her mother's side, Ryan kept watch at the tunnel entrance. The sounds of the jungle filtered down to them, alien chirps and calls that might have been predators or prey or something in between. "She is right. You know." Rilke's voice was soft in the darkness. "About being not alone together." Ryan turned to find her watching him, her eyes reflecting the dim blue glow of the cave plants. "What do you mean?" Rilke shifted carefully, not disturbing Sia as she moved to sit beside Ryan. "I have been alone since my bondmate was taken. Sia has been alone without a father. And you have been alone since your family was lost." Ryan swallowed hard. "I'm not sure I know how to be anything else anymore." "Neither am I," Rilke admitted. "But for Sia's sake, perhaps we could try." She hesitated, then placed her hand over his, her skin cooler than human temperature, but soft. Not as mates, but as allies, protectors. Something bloomed in Ryan's chest. Not romance, but a kind of solidarity he hadn't felt in years. "Allies," he agreed, turning his hand to clasp hers. "I think I can manage that." They remained in the cave for 3 days, venturing out only to gather food and scout the surrounding area. Mercer's forces had established a perimeter around the crash site, sending drones to scan the jungle in ever-widening circles. On the 4th day, Ryan returned from a scouting mission to find Sia alone in the cave, playing with what appeared to be a small, mechanical toy. "Where's your mother?" he asked, setting down the fruit he'd gathered. "Checking the back tunnels," Sia replied without looking up. "She said there might be another exit." Ryan frowned. Rilke wouldn't normally leave Sia alone, not with danger so close. "How long has she been gone?" Sia shrugged, still focused on her toy. "Since the big sun was high. Hours. Then, too long for a simple reconnaissance." Ryan checked his blaster and grabbed a portable light. "Stay here," he told Sia firmly. "Don't leave this chamber for any reason, understand?" The child nodded solemnly, finally looking up. "You'll bring Mom back?" "I promise," Ryan said, meaning it. He followed the tunnel Sia had indicated, moving deeper into the cave system. The air grew cooler, with a strange metallic tang that reminded him of the bunker where he'd first found them. The walls here were different too, smoother, with more of the strange symbols etched into the stone. Ryan was so focused on the markings that he almost missed the side passage, where a faint, purple glow emanated from around a corner. He approached cautiously, blaster ready, and peered into what appeared to be a small chamber. What he saw froze him in place. Rilke stood in the center of the room, her hands pressed against a crystalline structure that protruded from the floor. The crystal pulsed with energy that flowed up her arms in visible currents, causing her bioluminescent patterns to glow with unusual intensity. "Rilke!" he called, stepping into the chamber. She turned sharply, surprise evident in her expression. "Ryan, you should not be here." "Neither should you, apparently," he countered, gesturing to the crystal. "What is this place? What are you doing?" Rilke sighed, removing her hands from the crystal. The energy flow ceased immediately, leaving the room dimmer. This is a precursor node, a repository of knowledge. I was consulting it. About what? About you, she admitted. About whether I could trust a human with what Sia truly carries. Ryan lowered his weapon slowly. And what did your ancient crystal computer tell you? A ghost of a smile touched Rilke's lips. That you are an anomaly among your kind. That your pain has made you more, not less. I'm not special, Ryan protested. I'm just a man who crossed a desert to help strangers, Rilke interrupted. Who risked his life for a child not of his species. Who looks at my daughter and sees a person, not a specimen. She approached him slowly. The node confirmed what I already suspected. You are a good man, Ryan Cole. Before Ryan could respond, a distant explosion rocked the cave, sending dust and small stones raining from the ceiling. Sia! They exclaimed in unison, already running back toward the main chamber. They found the child huddled behind a rock formation, clutching her toy to her chest. They found us, she whispered as they reached her. The bad men came from the front tunnel. Ryan could hear them now, the clatter of equipment and the low murmur of voices echoing through the cave system. Is there another way out? He asked Rilke urgently. She nodded. Through the precursor chamber. There is a passage that leads to the surface, but it is narrow. Go, Ryan urged, checking his blaster's charge. I'll hold them off. Buy you time. No, Rilke said firmly, drawing her own weapon. We fight together or not at all. Ryan wanted to argue, but there was no time. The voices were getting closer, and he could see the bobbing lights of approaching searchers. He and Rilke positioned themselves on either side of the chamber entrance, weapons ready. The first harvester who entered the chamber never had a chance to raise his weapon. Rilke's energy blade took him in the throat, the wound cauterizing instantly. The second managed to fire a wild shot that ricocheted off the cave wall before Ryan's blaster found its mark. But there were more behind them, many more. Ryan counted at least 6 lights advancing through the tunnel. We can't win this fight, he muttered to Rilke. We need to run. She nodded grimly, gathering Sia into her arms. This way. They retreated to the precursor chamber, where Rilke activated some mechanism Ryan couldn't see. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage that sloped upward. Hurry, she urged, pushing Sia into the tunnel first. The passage will seal behind us. Ryan went next, with Rilke following close behind. True to her word, the entrance sealed itself as soon as they were through, cutting off the sounds of pursuit. The tunnel was tight and winding, forcing them to crawl in places. Sia led the way, her natural bioluminescence providing enough light to navigate by. After what felt like hours, they emerged onto a ledge high above the jungle floor. The twin moons illuminated the landscape below, revealing the pattern of Mercer's search grid, methodical lines of light cutting through the canopy as teams of harvesters combed the jungle. We need to get off this planet, Ryan said, surveying the search parties. They won't stop until they've found us. There is a settlement 2 days' journey from here, Rilke replied, pointing to the west. Small traders, smugglers mostly. They might have a ship we could acquire. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Steal, you mean? Rilke's expression was unapologetic. To save my daughter? Yes. Ryan couldn't argue with that logic. 2 days through that jungle, with Mercer's people between us and the settlement. Not great odds. Better than remaining here, Rilke pointed out. And I know these forests. My people visited Alara often in the old times. They made camp on the ledge, taking turns standing watch as the search continued below. During his shift, Ryan found himself studying Sia as she slept, her small face peaceful, despite the danger surrounding them. She reminded him so much of Elena, the same innocent trust, the same quiet bravery in the face of a hostile universe. I won't let them take you, he whispered. a promise to the sleeping child and to himself. Morning brought new challenges. The jungle was even more treacherous by daylight, with predators that camouflaged themselves as harmless vegetation and sudden sinkholes that could swallow a person whole. Rilke navigated these hazards with practiced ease, teaching Ryan to spot the warning signs of danger. Saya, for her part, seemed to thrive in the wilderness. She identified edible fruits, found fresh water sources, and even communicated with some of the smaller creatures that approached her curiously. She speaks the old language, Rilke explained when Ryan commented on this ability. The one the precursors taught to all their creations. So humans could do this too? Ryan asked, watching as Sia coaxed a lizard-like creature onto her palm. Once, perhaps, Rilke nodded. Before you forgot your origins and began conquering instead of communing. The implied criticism stung. But Ryan couldn't deny its accuracy. Humanity's expansion through the stars had often come at the expense of other species and ecosystems. By midday, they had covered significant ground, but the sound of pursuit was never far behind. Mercer's forces had adapted to the jungle, deploying smaller drones that could navigate between the trees and specialized tracking equipment that could detect their body heat. We need to throw them off our trail, Ryan said as they paused to rest beside a small waterfall. Split up, maybe. Rilke shook her head firmly. No, they want Sia. If we separate, you and I become expendable targets. I could create a diversion, Ryan suggested. Lead them away while you and Sia continue to the settlement. And if you are captured, killed, Rilke's voice was sharp. What then? Sia has already lost one father. I will not allow her to lose another. The words hung between them, charged with meaning neither was ready to fully acknowledge. Ryan opened his mouth to respond but was cut off by a warning shout from Sia. A drone had found them, a sleek, insectoid thing with multiple sensor arrays where eyes should be. It hovered just beyond the waterfall, its cameras focusing on their group with mechanical precision. Ryan's blaster was in his hand instantly, but before he could fire, Rilke was moving. She leaped across the pool, energy blade igniting in midair, and sliced the drone in half with a single fluid motion. The pieces fell into the water with a splash and a burst of electrical discharge. They know where we are now, she said grimly, returning to their side. We must move quickly. They abandoned their rest and pushed deeper into the jungle, no longer concerned with covering their tracks. Speed was now more important than stealth. Sia began to tire, her small legs struggling to keep pace. So Ryan lifted her onto his shoulders without breaking stride. Like flying, she giggled, her hands gripping his hair for balance. Just don't pull too hard, Ryan grunted, ducking under a low-hanging branch. I need that hair. Why? Sia asked innocently. Mom says it's inefficient for humans to have fur on their heads, but nowhere else. Ryan shot an amused glance at Rilke, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Oh, she does she? Our people evolved in warmer climates, Rilke defended herself. Full-body fur would have been impractical. It's not fur, it's hair, Ryan corrected with mock seriousness. And it's very dignified. Thank you very much. Their banter was interrupted by the sound of energy weapons discharging nearby. Too nearby. A beam of concentrated light cut through the foliage ahead, scorching a path through the undergrowth. Down! Ryan hissed, pulling Sia from his shoulders and pressing her to the ground beside a massive root structure. Rilke joined them, her body positioned protectively over her daughter's. Through gaps in the vegetation, they could see a team of harvesters moving in formation, using hand signals to coordinate their search pattern. Each wore the same, sealed environmental suits Ryan had seen on the first harvester, with advanced scanning equipment integrated into their helmets. 4 of them, Ryan whispered, counting the figures. Too many to fight directly. Rilke nodded in agreement, her eyes scanning their surroundings for options. Suddenly, Sia tugged at her mother's sleeve. The crawl space, she whispered, pointing to a gap beneath the massive roots they were hiding behind. Like the caves on Sarath. Ryan and Rilke exchanged glances. The opening was narrow, but it appeared to lead under the root system of several massive trees. A natural tunnel that might allow them to bypass the harvester team. Worth a try, Ryan decided. Sia first, then you, then me. Rilke helped Sia into the opening, then followed her daughter into the darkness. Ryan waited until they were both clear before backing into the space himself, keeping his blaster trained on the approaching harvesters until the last possible moment. The crawl space was even tighter than it had appeared, forcing Ryan to wriggle forward on his belly with his arms extended in front of him. The smell of rich soil and decaying vegetation filled his nostrils, and unseen creatures scurried away from his approach. After what felt like an eternity of claustrophobic movement, the tunnel widened into a small hollow beneath the roots of a particularly massive tree. Rilke and Sia were waiting for him, the child's natural bioluminescence providing just enough light to see by. "Did they spot us?" Rilke asked as Ryan emerged into the hollow. He shook his head. "I don't think so. But they're sweeping the area systematically. It won't take them long to find this place." "Then we keep moving," Rilke decided, already examining the other root tunnels that branched out from their temporary sanctuary. "This one leads in the right direction." They continued their underground journey, moving from root hollow to root hollow through the interconnected tunnels. It was slow going, but they managed to cover ground without exposing themselves to the search parties above. Hours later, exhausted and filthy, they emerged into a small clearing where the canopy had thinned enough to let the setting sun cast dappled shadows on the forest floor. Rilke oriented herself by the position of the suns, then pointed toward a distant ridge. "The settlement is just beyond that rise," she said. "We can reach it by morning if we continue through the night." Ryan nodded, too tired for words. He helped Sia drink from their dwindling water supply, then took a small sip himself before passing the container to Rilke. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and despite his exhaustion, Ryan felt that same strange connection he'd experienced in the cave. "Thank you," Rilke said softly, her eyes meeting his, "for everything you have done for us." "I haven't done anything yet," Ryan replied. "Not until we get you both somewhere safe." Rilke's expression softened. "You have given Sia something I could not, hope. She believes in you, Ryan Cole, as do I." Before Ryan could respond, a twig snapped somewhere to their left. He whirled, blaster raised, just as a figure emerged from the undergrowth, a harvester, alone, and seemingly as surprised to see them as they were to see him. Time slowed. Ryan saw the harvester's hand move toward his weapon, saw Rilke push Sia behind her, energy blade igniting with a hiss, saw the targeting laser paint a red dot on Rilke's chest. 3 shots rang out in quick succession, Ryan's blaster finding its mark where the harvester's helmet met the neck seal of his suit. The figure crumpled backward, weapon discharging harmlessly into the canopy. "Run!" Ryan urged, already moving to check if the harvester had managed to signal his position. The communication array on the suit was active, a steady ping that would lead others straight to them. "They're coming. We need to move now." They abandoned stealth entirely, running through the jungle as fast as Sia's small legs could carry her. When she began to falter, Ryan scooped her up without breaking stride, his muscles burning with the effort, but his determination unwavering. Night fell, but they continued their desperate flight, guided by Rilke's uncanny sense of direction and the distant lights of the settlement that gradually came into view as they crested the ridge. What they found was not the bustling trading post Ryan had imagined, but a ramshackle collection of prefabricated structures and converted shipping containers. A handful of small vessels were docked at a crude landing pad, most looking barely spaceworthy. "Not exactly a luxury spaceport," Ryan muttered as they approached the settlement's perimeter. "It will serve our purpose," Rilke replied, scanning the vessels. "There, That courier ship, small, fast, and less likely to be missed immediately. Ryan followed her gaze to a sleek craft that, despite showing signs of age and hard use, was clearly better maintained than the others. You're really set on stealing a ship, aren't you? Do you have a better suggestion? Rilke challenged. Perhaps we should ask Mercer politely if we can borrow one of his vessels. The sarcasm startled a laugh from Ryan. Point taken. But we need to be smart about this. Security might be lax out here, but it still exists. They observed the settlement for an hour, noting patrol patterns and security measures. The courier ship was guarded by a single bored-looking individual who spent more time drinking from a flask than watching the vessel. I can create a distraction at the far end of the landing pad, Ryan suggested. You get Sia aboard. Start the pre-flight sequence. I'll join you before anyone realizes what's happening. Rilke nodded, but her expression was troubled. And if you cannot reach us in time? I will, Ryan assured her with more confidence than he felt. Just be ready to fly the moment I'm aboard. The plan was simple but effective. Ryan created his distraction by sabotaging the fuel line on one of the larger ships, causing a controlled leak that quickly attracted attention as alarms blared. In the confusion, Rilke and Sia slipped aboard the courier vessel unnoticed. Ryan was making his way to the ship when he spotted a familiar black vessel descending toward the settlement. Mercer's Hunter, its sleek profile unmistakable even in the darkness. They were out of time. He sprinted the remaining distance to the courier ship, diving through the airlock just as Rilke was sealing it behind him. Go! He gasped, rolling to his feet. Mercer's here! Rilke was already at the controls, her fingers moving with practiced efficiency over the unfamiliar human interface. The engines roared to life as Ryan strapped Sia into a jump seat and took the co-pilot's position. You know how to fly this thing? He asked as they lifted off, the ship responding smoothly to Rilke's commands. The basics are universal, she replied, eyes fixed on the viewport as they accelerated away from the settlement. And I was a pilot before I was a fugitive. The courier ship was indeed fast, faster than Ryan had anticipated. They broke atmosphere before settlement security or Mercer's vessel could organize a meaningful pursuit. But their advantage wouldn't last long. We need a destination, Ryan said, studying the navigation system. Somewhere beyond Coalition space, preferably. Rilke hesitated. Then, input coordinates Ryan didn't recognize. The fringe colonies, she explained. Independent worlds where the Council has limited influence. And where we might find others of your kind, Ryan guessed. Perhaps, Rilke admitted. There are rumors of a Sarathi enclave on Vega Prime. Whether they still exist, she shrugged, the gesture almost human in its uncertainty. The ship's sensors chimed a warning. Mercer's vessel had followed them into orbit and was closing fast. He's persistent. I'll give him that, Ryan muttered, taking control of the defensive systems. Can we outrun him to the jump point? Rilke's expression was grim. Not without assistance. She glanced back at Sia, who sat quietly watching them, her large eyes solemn. Little star, do you remember the toy your father gave you? The one with the special light? Sia nodded, pulling the small mechanical object from a pocket in her garment. Now that Ryan had a better look at it, he could see it wasn't a toy at all, but some kind of data storage device disguised as a child's plaything. The precursor knowledge, he realized aloud. Rilke nodded. A fraction of it, enough to confuse their sensors. Perhaps, if we can interface it with this ship's systems. Ryan helped Sia connect the device to the courier's computer, watching in amazement as the alien technology integrated seamlessly with the human interface. The ship's lights flickered momentarily, then stabilized as new information flooded the displays. What did it do? He asked, scanning the readouts that now contained symbols he couldn't decipher. It has reconfigured our energy signature, Rilke explained, a note of wonder in her voice. To their sensors, we now appear as background radiation, nothing more than a ghost in the void. True to her words, Mercer's vessel veered away, its targeting systems apparently unable to lock onto their ship. They reached the jump point unopposed and engaged the faster-than-light drive, leaving Earth's solar system and the Genetic Council behind. The journey to the fringe colonies would take several days at FTL speeds. During that time, the three of them fell into a comfortable routine. Ryan handled the ship's maintenance. Rilke monitored their course and sensor readings. And Sia explored every corner of the small vessel with boundless curiosity. On the third night, as Ryan sat watching the hypnotic patterns of FTL travel through the viewport, Sia climbed into his lap with the casual confidence of a child who knew she was welcome. "When we get to the new place, will you marry Mom?" she asked, picking up the conversation as if it had never been interrupted. Ryan smiled, no longer flustered by the question. "That's a complicated thing. Sia, your mother and I come from different worlds, different cultures. But you love her," Sia stated with absolute certainty. "I can see it in your colors." "My colors?" "The energy around you," Sia explained, tracing patterns in the air around Ryan's head. "Humans don't see them, but Sarathi do. Yours and Mom's are starting to blend where they touch. That means love." Ryan felt heat rising to his face. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple." Rilke's voice came from behind them. She moved to sit beside Ryan, her eyes reflecting the shifting lights of hyperspace. "But it is also frightening." "Frightening?" Ryan echoed. "To find hope again, after so much loss," Rilke clarified. "To allow oneself to care, knowing the universe can take it all away in an instant." Ryan understood that fear all too well. After losing Elena and Samantha, he'd walled himself off, convinced that isolation was safer than risking his heart again. "What if we took it one day at a time?" he suggested. "No promises beyond doing our best to keep each other safe." Rilke's lips curved in a smile. "A very human approach, but perhaps a wise one." Sia looked between them, clearly dissatisfied with this adult compromise. "But will there be a ceremony? With flowers and music? That's what happens in the stories." Ryan laughed, the sound surprising even himself. "Maybe someday, kiddo. Let's focus on finding somewhere safe to live first, okay?" The ship dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Vega system 3 days later. Vega Prime was a lush, green world with vast oceans and scattered archipelagos. Nothing like the red desert where they'd first met, or the dense jungle of Alara. They approached cautiously, scanning for any sign of pursuit or hostile forces. The planet appeared peaceful, with scattered settlements visible on the larger islands, but no significant military or corporate presence. "There," Rilke pointed to a cluster of structures nestled in a forested valley on the largest landmass. "The architecture is Sarathi." They set the courier down in a clearing near the settlement, powering down all systems except basic life support. If anyone was tracking them, they didn't want to make it easy. "What now?" Ryan asked as they gathered their meager belongings. "Just walk up and introduce ourselves?" "My people value directness," Rilke replied with a hint of amusement. "So yes, essentially." They emerged from the ship into warm sunshine and fragrant air, a pleasant change from the recycled atmosphere they'd been breathing for days. Sia ran ahead, delighting in the feel of actual grass beneath her feet and the sight of birds wheeling overhead. They had barely covered half the distance to the settlement when figures appeared on the path ahead. Tall, blue-skinned individuals with the same distinctive features as Rilke and Sia. They carried no visible weapons, but their stance was cautious. Rilke stepped forward, speaking in the melodic language of her people. The response was immediate: surprise, then recognition, then joy. One of the Sarathi embraced Rilke, speaking rapidly in their shared tongue. "They thought all from our colony had been taken," Rilke explained to Ryan, her voice thick with emotion. "We are the first to find this sanctuary in many cycles. The Sarathi welcomed them into their settlement, a harmonious blend of advanced technology and natural materials that seemed to grow from the landscape rather than imposing upon it. Ryan felt out of place among these elegant beings, but they treated him with courtesy and respect as Rilke explained their journey. That evening, a celebration was held in their honor. Music, unlike anything Ryan had ever heard, filled the central gathering space, and food that tasted of sunlight and ocean was shared freely. Sia was immediately adopted by a group of Sarathi children who seemed fascinated by her half-human father. As the twin suns of the Vega system began to set, casting the valley in golden light, Rilke found Ryan sitting apart from the festivities, watching Sia play with her new friends. "You are quiet," she observed, joining him on the bench carved from living wood. "Are you unwell?" Ryan shook his head. "Just processing. You've found your people. You're safe here. That's what matters." Rilke studied him intently. "You speak as if you do not include yourself in that future." "I'm human," Ryan said simply. "This is your world, not mine." "And where will you go?" Rilke challenged. "Back to your empty ship? Your solitary existence?" Ryan had no answer for that. The thought of returning to his former life, the endless cycle of cargo runs and empty nights, held no appeal now. But what place could he have here, among the Sarathi? "Sia needs you," Rilke continued when he didn't respond. "I need you." The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable. Ryan met her gaze, seeing in it the same loneliness he'd carried for years, and the same hope for something more. "I don't know how to be part of a family anymore," he confessed. "I'm afraid I'll fail you both. And I am afraid I cannot protect my daughter from those who hunt her," Rilke countered. "Yet, here we are, still trying." She placed her hand over his, her skin cool against his warmth. "Perhaps that is all anyone can do. Try, despite the fear." Before Ryan could respond, a commotion from the settlement's perimeter drew their attention. Sarathi guards were gathered at the edge of the forest, weapons now visible as they surrounded a figure who had emerged from the trees. Ryan and Rilke rushed to join them, pushing through the crowd to find themselves face to face with a tall human in a simple environmental suit, nothing like the harvester's gear, but clearly designed for a similar purpose. "Mercer!" Rilke hissed, her hand moving to her weapon. The man raised his hand slowly, showing they were empty. His face, visible through the helmet's clear visor, was lined with age and what might have been weariness. "I come alone," he said, his voice lacking the mechanical filter of the harvesters. "And unarmed." "How did you find us?" Ryan demanded, placing himself between Mercer and Rilke. "The same way I've tracked the Sarathi for 20 years, Mercer replied. "Determination and resources." His gaze shifted to Rilke. "But I'm not here to take your daughter. Rilke of Sarath. Not anymore." Suspicion radiated from every Sarathi present. "Why should we believe you?" one of the elders demanded. Mercer slowly reached into a pocket of his suit, withdrawing a data crystal that glowed with an inner light. "Because I bring warning and proof of my sincerity." He held the crystal out to Rilke. "The Council has deployed a new weapon, one designed to target Sarathi physiology specifically. They no longer need live specimens. They've synthesized what they need from previous harvests." Rilke accepted the crystal cautiously. "What is this?" "The weapon's specifications, countermeasures, everything I could download before I left." Mercer's expression was grim. "They plan to deploy it within the cycle, a genetic plague that will eradicate all Sarathi DNA it encounters." The revelation sent a wave of fear through the gathered crowd. Rilke's hand tightened around the crystal. "Why betray your masters now, Mercer? After all you've done in their service?" Something like shame crossed the man's weathered features. "Because I helped create this monstrosity, believing I was advancing human understanding. I was wrong. He looked directly at Sia, who watched from the safety of her mother's side. Some knowledge isn't meant to be taken. Some prices are too high. Ryan studied the man who had hunted them across the stars. What happens to you now? The council won't just let you walk away. They already believe I'm dead, Mercer said with a hint of grim satisfaction. My ship was destroyed in an unfortunate accident while pursuing fugitives in the Alaran asteroid belt. Official record. The Sarathi elders conferred briefly. Then one stepped forward. You will remain here while we verify the information you've brought. If it proves true. The elder hesitated. Then perhaps there is hope for understanding between our peoples after all. As Mercer was led away under guard, Ryan turned to Rilke. Do you believe him? I believe he believes what he's saying, she replied carefully. Whether the threat is real, we shall see. She looked toward the settlement, where anxious discussions had already broken out among the Sarathi. If it is, my people will need to prepare, to fight, perhaps, for the first time in generations. You won't be alone, Ryan promised, taking her hand firmly in his. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Sia appeared at their side, slipping her small hand into Ryan's free one. As a family, she asked, her large eyes hopeful. Ryan looked from the child to her mother, seeing in both the future he had thought lost forever. As a family, he agreed. In the days that followed, Mercer's information proved accurate. The genetic weapon was real, and already in production at facilities throughout Coalition space. The Sarathi Council debated strategies for protection and countermeasures, drawing on the combined knowledge of their people and the unexpected ally they had found in Mercer. Ryan and Rilke were given a small dwelling at the edge of the settlement, a beautiful structure that seemed to have grown rather than been built, with living walls that adjusted to their occupants' needs and windows that filtered the bright vegan sunlight to a comfortable glow. One evening, as they sat on the dwelling's terrace watching Sia play in the garden below, Rilke turned to Ryan with an expression he had come to recognize as her determined look. My people have a ceremony, she began without preamble. Not unlike your human marriages, though with different expectations and commitments. Ryan raised an eyebrow, his heart suddenly racing. Oh! It is called the bonding of paths, Rilke continued, where two beings choose to walk the same road, facing whatever comes together, as equals. That sounds nice, Ryan managed, his mouth suddenly dry. Rilke's lips curved in that smile that never failed to captivate him. Sia has been telling everyone you are my bonded mate already. It is becoming rather embarrassing to correct her. Ryan laughed, the tension breaking. Well, we can't have that, can we? Sia embarrassed is a force to be reckoned with. So you would consider it? Rilke asked, suddenly serious. Binding your path to mine, officially? Even knowing what dangers may lie ahead? Ryan took her hands in his, marveling at how right it felt, these alien fingers intertwined with his human ones. Rilke, I crossed a desert, fought harvesters, crashed a ship, and stole another one for you and Sia. I think my path is already pretty firmly bound to yours. The ceremony took place at sunset, 3 days later, with the entire Sarathi settlement in attendance. Ryan wore garments they had provided, flowing fabrics in shades of blue and green that complemented Rilke's natural coloring. Sia served as what humans might call a flower girl, scattering bioluminescent petals along the path where her parents would make their vows. The ritual itself was simple, but profound. Ryan and Rilke stood facing each other in a circle of light created by the assembled Sarathi, their joined hands wrapped in a cord woven from materials from both their worlds, human and Sarathi, bound together as they would be. Two paths becoming one, the elder intoned, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering. Two hearts beating in rhythm, two souls recognizing their journey together. Ryan and Rilke spoke their promises, his in carefully practiced Sarathi, hers in the human standard language. They pledged protection, honesty, support, and love, not just to each other, but to Sia, and to any others who might join their family in the years to come. As the final words were spoken, and the binding cord was tied in an intricate knot that would be preserved as a symbol of their union, Ryan felt a peace he had not known since losing his first family. This was not a replacement for what he had lost. Nothing could be that, but something new and equally precious. The celebration that followed lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and food shared under the stars. Sia flitted between groups of Sarathi children and adults, proudly introducing "my father" to anyone who would listen. Her joy infectious. It was during a quiet moment, when Ryan and Rilke had stepped away from the festivities to catch their breath, that they noticed the strange light in the sky, a pulsing beacon that did not match any natural phenomenon of Vega Prime. "What is that?" Ryan asked, squinting up at the unusual display. Rilke's expression grew solemn. "A calling sign, from others who have escaped the council." "More Sarathi?" Ryan guessed. "Perhaps. Or others who have suffered at the council's hands." Rilke turned to him, her eyes reflecting the distant light. "Whatever it is, it means our fight is not over. The weapon, Mercer's warning, this is just the beginning." Ryan nodded, understanding the implications. The peaceful sanctuary they had found might be temporary. The threat to Sia and all Sarathi still very real. But as he looked back toward the celebration, where his new daughter danced with her friends beneath alien stars, he felt not dread, but determination. "Whatever comes," he said, echoing their vows, "we face it together." Rilke smiled, taking his hand in hers. "Together," she agreed. "As family." In the dwelling they now shared. Sia had hung the binding cord above her bed, alongside a small mechanical toy that held the knowledge of ancient beings and the crude sketch Ryan had made of Earth's constellations. A family created not by blood or species, but by choice and love and shared purpose. As they rejoined the celebration, Ryan caught Sia watching them with satisfaction. "See," she said when he reached her, "I told you that you should marry Mom." Ryan laughed, scooping her up into his arms. "Yes, you did. Smartest kid in the galaxy, aren't you?" "In multiple galaxies," Sia corrected him seriously. "That's what the precursor knowledge says." Rilke joined them, her hand finding Ryan's shoulder in the casual touch of bonded mates. Together, they looked up at the pulsing signal in the night sky, a reminder that their journey was far from over, that challenges awaited beyond this moment of joy. But for now, in this place, they were safe, they were together, they were family. And for Ryan Cole, who had once lived only for the next flight and the empty space between stars, that was more than enough. It was everything.